Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k podcast and YouTube channel, focusing on giving you the strategies and tactics to siege initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined by the jester to the King in the North, Connor. How you doing this evening, Connor?
Good, thanks, Ryan.
And this is another special episode as we have a guest appearance. The former other guy, the Silent King who needed no name, but has now been rebranded. The Menace of Manchester, the Nightmare of Nottingham, the Lucifer of London, the Bad Apple of the Bunch, the other guy they told you not to worry about. It's Mean Ben. Welcome to the show, Ben. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I mean, I don't think that intro can be beaten. So yeah, great little piece for me there.
We spent a little bit of time crafting that one, Connor and I back and forth. See, in there as well, there was a little nod, which some people, lore fans, might get, which is obviously the Silent King, because recently you won King of the North, but what faction did you take? Because it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so took Hierotek Circle. So first tournament with them. Had a few games beforehand, but did pretty well.
Absolutely crushed it. So you managed to get. I mean, we'll spoil it straight away. You managed to come away with first place, didn't you?
Yeah, so first place, I think two of us went undefeated 4-0 through the tournament, but I ended up with a higher Tac Ops. So yeah, came away with first.
It's all about the tiebreakers, and it's one of those things we say about knowing the win condition, because it really, really is important when you go into the majority of tournaments, unless they're huge 2-day events, whatever. But the majority of tournaments come down to tiebreakers. So we'll talk about Tac Ops in a bit, because I think that's probably interesting to hear what you chose and what you would take again and what you wouldn't, that sort of stuff. So, I mean, firstly, because obviously you're one of the major TOs up in Manchester. Can you tell me a little bit about the event, where it's hosted, roughly how many players you had, and sort of the terrain choices you made and that sort of thing?
Obviously, so myself and Dan, or D's Nuts for those of you on Discord, we run the King in the North tournaments in Manchester. It's actually in Stockport, but we kind of don't really publicise that. So yeah, it's Element Games, where I know you've got an affiliate link to. So this was our biggest tournament to date. So we've kind of been running them since early last year. So 36 players in total. Which is a good turnout, so 40 tickets sold, so good on the day. 4-round event. We do mixed tables, open and into the dark. We don't kind of try and do 2 rounds of open, 2 into the dark. We just have mixed tables, and it's just potluck what you get. We do use your map pack. So the Turning Points Tactic map pack was in use for all of the open. And then obviously the close quarters 6 objective pack for into the dark.
Ideal. I'm just going to say there, Connor, there's a few things you can take away from Ben then. You see how he just seamlessly plugged stuff that we need in there. You know, the map pack, the element games, but
he improvised that. That was amazing.
He even said affiliate right first time.
I was practicing it in the drive all the way home just to show
Ben, do you want a job? You can.
Ben can come on again. This is it.
I'll just keep doing sound bites for the channel. That's fine.
Ideal. It's what we need. Awesome. So obviously, I've been to quite a few of the King of the North tournaments, and I think they are really, really well run. The whole scene you have up there is super friendly. It's getting, and I'll say this, like more and more competitive. And I think the fact that some of London's best players, whatever, went up there the other day and didn't walk away with a trophy is really showing the strength of the growing meta in the North, which is awesome to see, because across the UK, I think each independent seed is now just like growing bigger and bigger and getting better and better, and that's what we want. And so I'm hoping we'll see a whole bunch of you guys down in the Nottingham tournament in December, but also our own tournament in November in London, because I want to see like the Notts Kill Team and the Manchester Kill Team teams come down to London and play amongst the masses. I think it'd be really, really awesome to see. Okay, so Hierotek Circle, we haven't seen too many podiums with them. And they've had a few buffs going forwards, and other teams, that's the main challenge, had a few nerfs. But was there a certain reason in mind that you went, you know what, I'm taking Hierotek to this tournament? Was there something that appealed to you about them?
Well, actually, kind of bought them on a whim in September. So I was just kind of in element, had some vouchers for the store, and it was pretty much one of the only kill teams I didn't have. Also at the time, I think the general rating was around about a B, which then meant anytime I played down on a Friday night, it's just always more satisfying crushing him with a B tier team.
I thought you were going to say you level the playing field, but no, you still crushed him.
Yeah, it's just
in his defence, were you playing with or without doors? Because I reckon his Gallippox was still banging on that door trying to get through.
We have to play doors, otherwise he'll probably refuse to play now after his experience in Manchester.
Oh geez, yeah, Warhammer Fest was a whole thing, wasn't it? But we're beyond that now. So basically, you wanted a B tier team to go and beat people up, but post the buffs, your opinion might have changed, mate. Maybe.
Yeah, I think they were a good team. So to be honest, the first few games with them, if I'm really honest, hated them. So that we're talking about from a weakness point of view, they are unbelievably punishing if you deploy badly. And I think I kind of learned that in the first 2 or 3 games. You suddenly realise in Turning Point 1 that everything's in the wrong place, or your synergies aren't kicking in, and then you really struggle. Also, kind of played Recon at first, and couldn't get that to work, and then switched to Security. But yeah, I think from the buffs now, they are a good team. They're far better on open than Into the Dark, I personally think, but they've got a lot of tricks and tools that they can use.
So that's something that I think is really interesting that you've touched on there is the Tac Op choice. So there's a few players whose opinions that I really do rate. You're one, and so is Clostry as another. And now both of you have said the way to go forward with Tac Ops on this team is Security. So I think for people who are maybe playing Hierotek and struggling and running Recon, I know that usually I bias myself towards Recon. I think maybe listen to the advice of some other people who have a bit more experience in that field and pick up Security. But building on that, what do you think about their faction Tac Ops and the Security deck / Recon deck? Your overall thoughts? What would you do? Wouldn't you do with them?
Yeah, so I think when I played Recon, I kind of got caught in a trap of trying to get Recover Item and their version, whatever it's called, the 2 APL, Unearth or the Artifact one.
Unearth Artifact series.
Yeah, trying to get those to work together, and then you just end up like losing the model that's gone over there, and then you're on the back foot, and then you just don't have the mobility to get around, other than on your fly models that, generally speaking, you need them to be doing something else anyway. You've just sunk a lot of APL on few models trying to score those Tac Ops. Whereas from a security point of view, it feels like you are a team that your biggest weakness is your mobility. So almost that doesn't matter, because effectively in security you're like, right, I'm going to get to mid-board on Turning Point 2, and now it's your turn to try and get me off it. And I'm going to sit on the centre, I'm going to sit on the centre line, and then probably, depending on the board layout, I'm going to go seize ground and try and clear you out of there. However, I do find seize ground's the one that probably is the easiest to deny. And you end up sometimes only scoring 1 out of 2 on that. And then on some of the other teams, I'll pop Escort Operative, as you probably saw against Russ on GFN when we did the bat rep against Gallippox, mainly because from a Cryptek point of view, if you can keep him alive, you've got that fly mobility where I think actually getting him into the back line right at the end of the game is quite an easy one.
And yeah, because as well, with the resurrection, you effectively get 1 free chance to let them die, and then you can reanimate them and throw them back in towards the end. So normally when your main model goes down, your escort operative, it'd be, game over, loss of 2 points, but you can almost afford to just let that play out a little bit longer, which is pretty helpful. I think there's some really interesting points that you just brought out there, which I'm going to just focus on a little bit. So the one of the things that I find with Recon is it does favour those high mobility teams and the ability to be able to move up the board very quickly towards the end of Turning Point 3 and 4. But during that turning point, you need to maintain those threat ranges. And I guess one of the weaknesses of this team is that they are quite slow. And and therefore you can't necessarily do that large movement. Outside some niche cases, the Cryptek and some buffs that you can give, but generically they're quite slow, so you can't get them across. This is another conversation that I've started to have a little bit over the last few weeks, where I talk about the two different styles of team, and one is like a sort of American football style of set piece plays where everyone knows what they're going to do, and you plan it out and away you go, vice like dynamic plays. And I guess the point there, which you said about recover item, is it tells your opponent exactly where you're committing all of your resources to do all of your VP, so they can then just bias themselves into that. And then equally, you don't have the ability to throw more resources there if it goes wrong. So I think that's a really good point to take out, is that if you're committing all your eggs into that one basket and then suddenly your enemy can do the same, well, potentially they can bring in reinforcements quicker than you can, and then you're looking at potentially a 4-point negative swing, which would be pretty painful going forwards. So yeah, that's some really interesting points, and hopefully people out there playing Hierotek can take this as well. We're going to talk a bit more about Hierotek as well. But back to the tournament, which teams did you end up playing against?
Yeah, so I had Star Striders Turning Point 1, round 1, Star Striders round 3 as well. Vet Guard, I think, in round 2, and then Legionary in the final round.
So quite a good blend then. You sort of had two mid-range teams, a Horde team and an elite team. So that's quite a lot of things to contend with. Out of those teams, which did you find to be the hardest matchup between those styles?
Yeah, so weirdly, the one that ended up with the kind of the high score in my favour, but only from a Tac Op scoring on his part. So Vet Guard, just the sheer number of models and kind of threat options that he had. When we talk about kind of the gotcha piece, one of the things I'd always say with Hierotek Circle is that like Cryptek is absolutely key to everything you do, and pretty much keeping him alive is kind of the key piece. But in that game, Turning Point 3, I effectively chronoed on himself. He already had the 4+ invuln, and just flew him into the back line just to cause absolute chaos. Basically what that then did was got a couple of kills, but then the kind of plasma, sniper, leader, grenade launcher, to be fair, some of his dice were shocking, but that happens sometimes. But between the 4-up invuln and then the 5-up feel no pain, from that, pretty much drew a round of shooting. Did die in the end, which was fine. But by that point, he was nowhere near mid-board. So kind of from a distraction point of view, I then had complete control for central control and centerline that he'd also gone for. But Turning Point 2, it just looked like I was just going to get swarmed, and there wasn't really much to do.
So it's an interesting one, because there's like the amount of like firepower you have to put into something with a 4+ model save, that many wounds, and a 5-up feel no pain is insane. I've been interested to do the maths on it. I know you can't like do the maths on these sort of things quite a lot, so maybe you can do it in the background. But
what now?
The fact that each time you save one of those wounds, it comes back and it's hidden.
Yeah, Connor, what else are you doing?
That's what he's here for. He's a stats guy, the stats and affiliate guy. That and shouting corn. But like between the two, like, I think that is such a good defensive combo. Because also you can have if they're not in cover, you get to retain the cover dice as well, ploy, which for durability, just stacking one after the other is pretty rough to chew through. And it took an entire Vet Guard turn of shooting to down them. And then really, he's not even dead. Did he manage to pass the reanimate roll to get him back later on?
Yeah, came back Turning Point 4.
There you go. So, and that's rough. But you know, that's part of it. So it's interesting. So in that strategy, obviously the Cryptek was absolutely key. I imagine that's going to be the same to pretty much every single one of your games. Was there any other, different equipment choices or weapon choices that you made throughout the course of the day, like to mix things up as you went through?
Yeah, so I guess when we talk about strengths of Hierotek, like shooting is like an absolute mega from them, really, isn't it? I mean, you're hitting on threes with like a either a punchy gun in the Gauss, or something that kind of gives you a little bit more reliability in the Tesla. Obviously hitting on threes, but weirdly you wouldn't think of them as it, but they are a 6-inch team. You need that reliability from the re-roll, from the strategic ploy, and then when you start kind of like pumping the numbers through the kill team calculator, like you're regularly on both the Ghost or the Tesla, kind of pushing 5, 6 through, and then with a re-roll 6, 7, which kind of just does unbelievable damage to most teams. I did flick. I actually predominantly went Tesla through the games, mainly because obviously I was against 7, 8 wound models that I felt at points would need to bunch up. So although you're not the kind of the extension for the splash square instead of splash circle, kind of just chipping away those mortal wounds, and just getting a model down into kind of an easy kill for the next shot.
Yeah, it makes, and so because I guess the mortal wound crits splash 1, right? So the fact that your gun is 3-4 damage means that 2 normals against Vet Guard and that sort of stuff now suddenly does what it needs to actually start chipping people away. But I guess the interesting thing from that is it sounds like you've been listening to maybe some good podcasts, because it sounds like you think that dice don't kill people, but dice with rerolls do. So it's probably a good thing for people listening to take away, and I think that's like a hard learned lesson. But the interesting thing
it definitely is a hard learned lesson. I had the experience of playing you with the pre-nerf Star Striders.
They got all the rerolls, the rerolls all the time, and that's kind of like the interesting thing. So you're right. The reliability of Necron shooting is in that 6-inch range, but getting there is, I guess, the difficult part. So you have to, when you're playing them, I think, really figure out how you're going to get to that sweet spot without taking too much damage, because you're still only really six main threat models. But you took Teslas quite a lot, and you even took Teslas against Legionary, right?
So I have to admit, with a bit of a WhatsApp discussion going into the final round, where everyone was frantically pumping numbers through the kill team calculator. So obviously the opponent was going full Nurgle. And then kind of that retainer crit, how did that throw in the numbers against the Gauss, and pretty much putting the Tesla through the 5 dice and the mortal wounds just came out on top and everything. So I went full Teslas, so on the Despotech and 2 Immortals.
I guess the reason why that kind of makes sense is because it's min damage 3, you know they're going to have that up the whole game anyway. It doesn't really matter. And then because they're going to auto-retain a crit, the fact that your mortal wound is still getting through means that you're then going to still chip off that extra bit of damage each time you roll a crit. So that's like, and it's one of those things which is, I guess for me, completely non-obvious. Like if someone asked me off the bat, hey, do you want to take AP or 5 attacks and splash against the elite team? My immediate response would be, oh, you're taking the 4-5 damage AP1, right? Like, why would you not? And that's why I think it's so important for people to do that little bit of extra analysis and run those numbers every now and then, and just check your assumptions, because it's so easy for those assumptions to be wrong, and then you end up with a less effective what's the phrase, like a weapon choice, because even interestingly the standard deviation is less as well, because you're rolling more dice and you have access to rerolls and that sort of stuff, which for those what don't know what that means, it means that the chance of you rolling a lot less and whiffing or burning and shooting a lot hotter is less as well. So it sits more reliably in the middle, which is another way of looking at how your dice work out for you. Okay, cool. I think that's a pretty good overview of the tournament, but I'm pretty sure everyone listening is going to be absolutely focused on hearing your opinions about the team themselves, because you've got a bunch of experience with them now and you've managed to perform pretty well with them. So the sort of the threat guide that we're trying to work towards is focusing on sort of 4 key areas: strengths, weaknesses, gotchas, and strategies. So if we start with their strengths, do you think you could give us an opinion on what you think their key strengths are?
Yeah, so obviously we've already covered the shooting, which is kind of a given, given the weapons. But then going through the other stuff, the Cryptek's just brilliant. Chronomancer on open, Psychomancer on Into the Dark. Chronomancer's probably my second favourite model in the game. He'll never beat the Balefire, but he is amazing. The mine now just gives you so much board control. So effectively a 12-inch bubble, which just ties so well with playing security. So you can effectively, I mean, yes, he has some great weapons, and people kind of talk about the thing about him being for alpha strikes, and like, yeah, okay, I get that. But actually keeping him alive, turning point one's more key. So generally speaking, unless I know he's absolutely not going to get shot back, I'll keep him on conceal. And he's there simply to move up the board and completely deny the movement of the other team, so that I can almost say that side of the board is controlled by him, and I'm going to focus on the other. But if you do get the chance to shoot, or even if you think that you're going to be advantageous with kind of move in 2 spells, you're talking a model that's kind of pseudo 5 APL if you include Leech. And even just little things that people probably aren't expecting, because of his ability to kind of force an overwatch or an action off somebody, can set up some like great set pieces. So basically, I'm in love with him. He's amazing. And then kind of going through the other stuff. So the bugs seem like a little bit irrelevant. Obviously, some people kind of get lost by the fact that they're not really dealing any damage. But the combination of your bugs and the death mark kind of coming in, so doing the strategic ploy the tac ploy to have him somewhere in space, they're your only chance of kind of getting forward objectives. And people probably aren't expecting it because you struggle for movement, but you can quite easily go 4-2 in round 1 on most things, with a little bit of APL modification and getting the death mark in early. So they're kind of the big things, and then you've already touched on it as well around about the durability. So even without the kind of the feel no pain and the 4-ups, you're saving on 3s. You can retain even when you're not in cover 10 wounds, and you're healing 2 of those wounds every turn. So to be honest, you're not really bothered about 2, 3, 3, 4 weapons, unless it's like intercession shooting into you twice. Because to be honest, you're retaining 1, you're probably saving at least 1. Okay, maybe they'll push 3 damage through, and then you're healing 2 of those at the start of the next turn.
Yeah, and that's the, I guess, really painful thing is you have to fully finish them, and even if you do, there's a chance they just get straight back up the next turn, and therefore you're not actually getting that benefit out of killing that model in the way in which you hope to. So you talked about them with the mine, which it was like a, I guess, eureka moment of me to me, which I hadn't thought about before. Is that, as you touched on there, the security synergy with the mine, to be able to say, I'm going to go into the midboard and I'm going to deny you like up to 4 inches of movement a turn to be able to get here, and that just means that the chance of them being able to get to that point and contest it is so difficult, right? So that is a really interesting synergy, which I think again just shows where potentially that works with security, or conversely, if you are still a diehard recon fan, potentially using that to try and pair with your recover item and that sort of stuff as well is another option. You touched on a few other things then, which I just want to dig into a little bit more. So you talked about Deathmark as part of your roster choice. Is he an auto include? Is he a bit more situational? And then also, what's your thoughts on the Apprentech? Is that a auto include or more situational as well?
So Deathmark has been an auto include, purely on open, definitely purely for the open deploy. The kind of the advanced deploy, so not for any actual damage output, or because I love his epic 1 mortal wound on his sniper rifle. Just because, especially on loot, like loot's horrific for you as a team. So that ability to be able to come down, loot the point before someone gets there, just gives you that chance. And you also, as we kind of talked from a durable, you are quite difficult to shift. So when you're on that point, it's going to take a fair amount of work to kind of get you off it, and then potentially you're going to come back at the start of the next turn anyway. The Apprentech, he does always feature, but mainly because I don't want to limit myself to the Cryptek having to cast both things every turn.
Okay.
Like I said, he's too critical that you need that flex from him. So what does tend to happen though, a lot of the time, is the Apprentech, he kind of sits at the back. He's only 2 APL. To be honest, if he's cast a spell and he's moved, then because he's not an immortal, you can't buff him with the plasma sight, which seems a bit odd, but fine. So
it seems like a unintended rules thing, but yeah.
Yeah. So every other comms in the game you can buff whoever you want, but no, he's not allowed to be buffed. Okay, fine. So he takes a long time to get anywhere if you're using him for from a spells point of view, but on things like loot or anything else, he can sit in the back, and then also his ability then to kind of shoot. So he's probably most reliable at long range. The damage isn't great. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's an AP1 bolter, so 3, 4, 4 shots. But if your Cryptek has taken the high ground and shot, shooting through him gives you like the Wormblade re-roll a number, which then he's probably not putting anything down, but can do some reliable finishing damage.
That's an interesting point as well. Do you use that quite a lot the other way as well? Is here a method of keeping your Crypt alive longer, or do you view him as that backfield, moving up and casting spells?
Completely the latter. Yeah. He just moves up. He's the one who will generally, if I'm running the chrono, be the thing casting Chronometron, because he can then give that immortal that's also stuck in the back a chance of actually getting forward.
That's a really good point, because obviously, so for those that don't know, and just to check my understanding, the Chronometron's where they're moving forward an extra 3 inches, their movement characteristic, and they get that 5 up for no pain, right? So you need someone to be handing out that to your models to give you the speed that you need to be able to get forward.
Yeah, because that's kind of key for you. So I know we're kind of jumping around, but from a gotcha's point of view, your immortal or your Despotech that's been buffed by Chronometron and has got the strategic ploy up for kind of plus 2 inches onto the movement. So you've got a kind of a base 9 inch, or you've actually got kind of a Necron on roller skates. So you've got an 11-inch charge on the Despotech, which is an absolute people just don't see coming. But it also gives you your own flexibility to kind of move around the back if you lose an objective and you need to get across somewhere. So yeah, I'd always see him sitting at the back and just, even though he can't be APL buffed himself, he can help with that movement.
And sorry about that, we had a little technical glitch, but we are now back with you. So we're just going to quickly round off on the final bits on the strengths of Hierotek. So you were talking then about really how you use the Apprentech and the sort of the shooting mechanics that you can and can't use.
Yeah, so the Apprentech, as you kind of mentioned, he'll just sit at the back, kind of buffing others through the spells and then moving forward slowly. He is only 2 APL, so he's not doing masses. However, his shoot through. So generally, that's the way around I'm going to do it. So the Cryptek's got into a decent position. Apprentech's still at the back board. He's going to use that reliability of the Wormblade style rerolls once he's bounced off the Cryptek, and finish someone off. 3/4 AP1 bolter still does work, but it's not as lethal as the rest of the package they come with.
And I guess my final point on strengths of the team really is the bugs. They probably have a better name than that. What is it, like it's probably name. What is the name? Just bugs.
The plasma sight and the accelerates. The reanimator and the Plasma accelerator? I don't know. Yeah, the bugs.
Little space bugs,
Yeah.
space scarabs. So anyway, I think that the fact that they have super conceal, this is probably where my map packs could use some improvement, because I guess having that much heavy in the midboard means that you don't get the full use out of these sorts of abilities, maybe. But having that super conceal means that you can obviously move them into what would be standardly quite dangerous positions, but actually get up the board and then get those objectives as well, which is another really key strength. So I think the next thing that's probably worth, unless you have any other points on their strength that you want to throw in before we move on?
No, we've covered the shooting, the durability, and the space bugs, who are absolutely your best chance of objective grabbing that people don't see coming.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like you remember what the mission is, right? You have to try and get VP, and those bugs are going to get it for you. So just like the glitchlings and the Galapox infected, you got to make full use. So next thing that I think is worth touching on is weaknesses. So clearly, you obviously went undefeated, but if someone wanted to try and defeat you, what sort of weaknesses do you think they can exploit with the team? Where is the team deficient, and what are they struggling to do?
So as I kind of mentioned really early on, they struggle in deployment, which sounds like a weird thing to say in a 4-turn game, but you're so dependent on your synergies. You're so dependent on making sure the reanimator is within 6 inch of at least 2 models, which means you've had to absolutely think forward for where he's going to be. That the on the other side, that you know exactly who you're going to buff and almost who you buff in for the +1 APL turning point 1, and then where does that need to be to be able to get a decent buff on turning point 2, and because depending on how cagey you are or how aggressive you are, shout out to Chris and Ryan and the rest of the aggressive Northern meta. You probably don't want to be starting half your team on an engage order, depending on how much AP the other team are bringing. So there's an awful lot of pre-measuring done in deployment, which also then, as someone going against you, they could almost be doing the same thing. So it's really clear to someone playing against Hierotek which objectives they're going to be able to get to. And if they think that there's no chance that they can get there, especially if it's secure or loot, and they're going to have to do something on it, then chances are their Immortals are going to have to start on engage. So that's whereas normally against most of the teams, you've got no way of second guessing how they're going to start, engage or conceal. And then the other thing is the absolute just stop the death mark being used as a forward deploy. So if you've got the initiative and unless the person's gone death mark move 1, get on to the objectives that are the central ones, because then the death mark can only come in 6 inches away from you, which means that chances are you've then the Hierotek Circle players wasted a CP to bring someone in from space, and then ends up putting them in a really terrible position that doesn't actually help their game plan.
That's a really good point, and it's something that you can often see with quite a lot of 2 APL teams is predicting where they can get to and what they can actually make on those turn 1 moves, because quite often I see it where people will deploy where only one model can reach a central objective for their team, and just by getting there first, even if you just get a toe on the objective and just APL contest it, then potentially they can't do anything about it, or they now have to do a scenario where they're going, well, I'm going to have to use my comms now over here in a different position to try and make up for the fact that I don't have the API I need somewhere else. And that can be really, really painful. So that's an awesome point to make. So abuse their slow nature and the amount of pre-planning that they have to try and do to get the most out of that. I think another sort of issue that I see with the team is that they've only really got 6 killers, I guess, because they've got those 2 space bugs you've already talked about. So do you find that sort of an issue with the team of where your killers are and how many models you can reliably kill in a turning point?
Yeah, because outside of the Cryptex blast, I mean, you don't even have access to a blast on a grenade. You've got a lethal 5 plasma grenade that with no blast in effect. So you do struggle for multi-kills, which is, again, what I would say though is on the teams, like on the Horde teams, probably not so much commandos, but on the other horde teams, you can reliably put down a model reasonably easily every time you shoot. So you're not going to be someone like, you're not going to be like Intercession, like working through double tapping and doing that. But I don't feel that the damage output really hurts them that much. Sometimes the dice can be swingy into elites, and if you're having to funnel 2 or 3 of your shots into one model, then that's when you struggle. But no, the issue with the 6 models, probably more from a damage output, it is the APL piece that you kind of touched on. So look, you're starting off with, I guess on paper, about 17 APL, with a pseudo 18 because you can kind of force someone to do something for free, and then you've got 1+1 off one of the space bugs. But you've generally needed to use that +1 APL in order to do something. So chances are you're not kind of end of turn boosting like you do with most comms just to get control, because you've needed to fully utilize that during the turn. So you're probably like the lowest APL in the game starting point, which does that really can hurt you on control and just general control of objectives.
That makes perfect sense. And I guess that APL hurt is felt even more when you're playing Into the Dark, right? Because suddenly now you're having to open doors, you have to try and get the movement. So you're already very slow guys are doing additional actions, so you're not able to take up as much board control as you want to early on, right?
Yeah, Into the Dark, and again, this goes back to the deployment piece, but on Into the Dark, I'd almost just decide the lane that you're not even going to bother contesting. So just almost just accept that there's one objective, one room, just one bit of the board that you're just going to leave. And you're like, right, okay, that's fine. I can comfortably push for 4 objectives, and that's it. Or I'm going to play 3-3-3-4 maybe. But I'm never looking at. I want to kind of control full board state on Into the Dark, whereas kind of on Open you can, mainly because of the Cryptek and the Mine. But yeah, on Into the Dark, basically just decide on your pairings or your groupings, and decide kind of which 2/3 of the map you're going to try and make yours.
That makes perfect sense. And I guess the last bit, when I'm observing the team, one of the areas where I think that they're potentially a little bit deficient is they don't really have any dedicated melee operatives. So I think their guys are like moderate level, that they're sort of Space Marines, right? They're 3/4 attacks on 3s, and you can give them lethal 5, which is quite nice, so they can bully your 7 wound models quite well. But against any sort of dedicated melee, I think that's where they start to struggle. And I don't really see how they can fix that too much. Do you have any thoughts on their melee and that sort of thing?
Same thing, I think, against like 7 wound, 8 wound models, like you said, you are Space Marine, so on your Immortals. Despotek's quite handy, obviously hitting on 2s, which does kind of help you, but generally speaking, you're 10 wound and you're actually looking to parry out more and just survive. But then again, you've then only got one way of APL boosting someone, which basically, I mean, like if you tie up 2 or 3 models, then they really struggle. If they do tie you up and you parry out, then obviously, like depending on activation wise, if the accelerator's already gone, then chances are you've completely and utterly screwed them, really, because they fall back and they're not doing anything. So if you've timed your activations into them well, then fine. If you haven't and you've somehow charged a ready model and the plasma sight's not gone, then yeah, look, I expect them to be buffed. I expect them to take a couple of steps back and blast you in the face. But yeah, they struggle. I mean, it's that kind of counter. You need to be within 6 inches for your reliability in shooting, really, but then obviously you're straight into charge range. So I guess the other thing for me, because of that, because like, well, unless I've done something fancy with barricades, or I've kind of like I've not made it possible for someone to get around, look, you're going to be in charge range. So, to be honest, if you can move forward, I'd rather be within 2 inches than within 6, and kind of just accept the fact that I'm going to get charged, but I'm going to force you to roll all of your saving dice first.
Yeah, I guess as well, there's always a potential that they charge you and they kill you, and that's great. But you're going to potentially resurrect the next turn, and then you can shoot them. And your melee is not so bad that, like, if you do blast them at close range, and let's say it's a commander and you do 8 damage. Well, now suddenly, even if they have just a scratch, they still don't want to try and fight you, right? Because if they take 2 hits, they're dead, or 1 hit, whatever, they're dead. So now they're having to think, actually this doesn't work anymore. And they're sluggers shooting you on 4s, a 3-up save and an auto retain. Well, that doesn't work either. So I think you've sort of got a good point there of use that asymmetry to your advantage. You're not so bad in melee that you're not going to get any hits at all, but you still need to be careful with what you do. I guess I just thought when I mentioned about resurrection there, like, I guess it's a team strength, but also a team weakness, right? Because it's not guaranteed. And
it's the biggest feel bad in the game after the Anointed's Feel No Pains for you. Yeah, it's like, as the person it's happening against, you see that kind of 3-up, and you're like, oh. And also that kind of the tweak within the data slate of that kind of reanimate within 3 inches. You can play some like pretty horrible and sneaky games depending on kind of how you play that, where you reanimate and then reanimating potentially in conceal. So which can give someone a real headache if they were if depending on where you died. But then from a feel bad for you, like if you lose 2 models in turning point 1 and both fail to reanimate, good luck to you.
It is pretty rough, and I wonder almost if it's worth that could be a change that they do to it is make it so it's a guaranteed action, but you get less reanimations, not a turn. I don't know.
I think maybe if they made that the tweak to the Technomancer, because at the minute, I just don't. I mean, some people probably like post heavily in the comments about the best times to take him, but he's just subpar. Whereas if the animation rolls within 6 of him automatically happened, or even though he just made your reanimation like team wide on a 2+ or something, then I could kind of see him being, and that would be like his thing. Because at the minute, almost the things that were his thing got buffed anyway in the data slate.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you're left in this weird scenario being like, well, why am I not taking the Chronomancer? Like, it seems like the obvious choice in, I want to say, almost every matchup. And I think the Psychomancer as well needs something to buff him, because, again, I think he has some niche cases, but I'm never really seeing when to take him. I don't know if they can make his shooting hit on 2s or something, but maybe that would be too disgusting.
Yeah, I think into the dark against certain teams, he's great. So he can shut down a room. So basically making almost a 12-inch bubble where no one can retain a crit and turning off all rerolls on into the dark. Like most of those rooms, depending on where you position him, he's shutting down that room, which then, depending on the team, like can really hurt their reliability in combat, even like shooting or melee. So he does have play there. I mean, and also his ability then to kind of make an objective punishingly hard to loot. But again, on open, you're just taking the Chronomancer.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense to me. Okay, so I think we've done a pretty good job covering the strengths and weaknesses. I think we're going to go into some gotchas and some strategy for playing the team and playing against the team. But before we do that, Connor, if people are listening to this and they're enjoying it and they're thinking, this is some good content, I want more of this, and I want to try and support this channel to do a bit more of what it's doing, is there a way they could go about doing that?
Affiliate. Damn it, too early. Okay, bollocks. Yeah, there is. So maybe you're sat at home and you're looking at your Hierotek Circle on the shelf and you're itching to get them out and get them to a tournament and play them yourself. Well, why don't you come along to our tournament, Turning Point Tactics tournament? It's on the 25th and 26th of November. We'd love to see you. Me and Ben actually said off air that he's taking his B tier team and he's going to crush everyone. So if you think you can take Ben, then come down. We'd love to see you. Just touching on that, it's getting close, and we would like to have emailed out the tournament packet. You're probably wondering, if you bought a ticket, where is the tournament packet? We've just got a few hurdles with that. So, as a workaround, what we've done, in the description to this video, you'll find a link tree. On the link tree, we've added the tournament packet, so you can find it there. We're still hoping to try and get the tournament packet emailed out to you, but in the meantime, please use a link tree. The information's all there, and please share it out amongst everyone else too. We know that it's good to get the data ahead of time. But so come to the tournament. That's a great way to support. Another way is to become a patron. It would cost you £3 a month, which, what does that get us? Well, that gets us a couple of packets of blue tack. And if you've perhaps seen Turning Point 5, then you can see the good work that goes to. But
quite literally holding the show together.
But what does that get you? Well, that gets you early access to all of our videos, as well as some exclusive Patreon-only content. We've got a Discord community on there as well that's growing and growing. It's phenomenal to see. You'll get access to Patreon priority questions too, which is an episode we do where we answer all those queries that you've got and need an answer to. And then lastly, perhaps even you've seen Mean Ben's Necrons. They were gorgeous, I must say. Good work, Ben, in GFN Gaming's channel. And if you haven't seen it, go watch the vid. It's an incredible bat rep. And you want to assemble and build your own set of Hierotek Circle. All Gallipux. The Gallipux look good too, Ross. Well, if you buy them through Element Games, which will be supporting the aggressive Northern Meta's Stronghold, but if you buy them using our affiliate link, which is on that link tree in the description below, then that'll also help to support the podcast. And if you're in the US, you can do the same, but through Noble Night Games, and that's another way to support the podcast. And then lastly, if you just hit like and subscribe and share this with people that you think would enjoy this sort of content, then that's also much appreciated too.
Awesome stuff. And so the tournament, by the way, has done really, really well. We've managed to sell all 64 tickets.
Oh, phenomenal.
Which is, absolutely incredible. If you're still looking for tickets and you can only do one day, please still reach out and get in contact with me about the Sunday, because there's a few people that won't be able to make the Sunday. I'm sure we can arrange something there to get you involved. But if not, we'll see what we can do to try and get some of the stuff about the tournament shared, and all that sort of stuff with the, who's winning, who's playing where, and that sort of stuff. And I don't know if we can get a stream set up. It might not be achievable for this one, but definitely something we'll try and work towards in future. So, that's a...
Yeah, I mean, with the polish of this pod, I'm sure a stream will be easy to achieve.
Exactly. Like, everyone's seen it. Everyone who's seen Turning Point 5 knows the behind the scenes now. There's no hiding from it. We're trying to get there. So interestingly, next this Friday, we are going to try and do some live streaming stuff down at Sanctuary. It'll be a learning experience. I've bought about 800 packs of blue tack, so I think we're going to be able to be ready for it.
And that's just for eating.
See how it goes. That's just to get me through the game. We'll see how it goes. But hopefully we'll have another episode of Turning Point 5. And if you guys are interested in it and you want to, come along and see that, then that's where we'll be. And we'll try and make it a regular thing. And I'll try and advertise it a bit better in future as well. So that's the good stuff to look forward to. All right, awesome. So let's go into a bit more on Hierotek, because it's sort of our Hierotek deep dive, I guess. We've got two last bits to try and cover off. One is the sort of gotchas, which is, I guess, where you can get easily caught out, or something you didn't know a team could do, and then suddenly you're playing it for the first time and something happens and you go, I really should have predicted this and should have known this was coming, but I didn't know about it. So is there any main gotchas that you're tracking, Ben, from your team that you think's worth people being aware of?
And I'm going to not claim this one. I'm going to shout out to Clostry for this one. We kind of spoke about it before, but I think it was when the recording went off. So basically the Despotek can be an absolute pain in the arse. So effectively, the Despotek, if you've got the strategic ploy up, that gives you +2 2-inch movement. And then he gets Chronometron boosted. You've basically got this 9-inch moving super speedy Necron, or an 11-inch charging Necron. So obviously, at the point of him carrying that over and being chrono boosted, you then APL boost him. So effectively, you've then got this 3 APL Despotek that can be given lethal 5. Is hitting on 2s. Again, I know we've spoken about them not being overly reliable in close combat, but if you're finishing somebody off, so effectively you've got this 11-inch charge. You're going to finish someone off. You've then got this hitting on 2s, absolute shooting beast in the back line, which so he's probably one of your only chances really of a double kill. Because effectively, once he's within 6, he's rolling with double balanced, so he's going to have the reroll 6 from the strat ploy, but he can also do demand on himself. So effectively, you're hitting on 2s with 2 rerolls, so he's putting most things down. He's then in their back line. Look, 12 wounds, 3+ save, 5 up feeling the pain. He's nearly a Hulk that can come back to life. And then if people think, all right, well, he's activated now, I'm going to leave him. Then pop the Cryptek. And then force him to Overwatch on 3s. And if you haven't used his demand reroll, you're hitting on 3s still with a reroll. So you've got that chance within 2 moves, and then the Cryptek goes and blasts something else. So you can very quickly kind of remove 4 models in 2 activations, which can just be absolutely crippling for the other person.
That does sound absolutely brutal. And it's that, again, finding a way around the reliability, because now he hits on 2s, as you say, the Overwatch becomes so much more reliable. And even hitting on 2s in melee, is that true? I think.
Yeah.
He's just an absolute monster. So he can now probably quite reliably do 7 damage with a reroll and lethal 5 on his bayonet in melee, and then go and shoot someone for a reliable probably 8 to 12 damage, which is like absolutely gross. So that's pretty awesome as a move goes. But that's also, like, I guess when it comes to alpha strikes, there's a certain move that probably earned you the name Mean Ben, of being able to do that as well, that the team can do. Which, do you want to talk through some of the alpha strike potential that they have? Even the dog's keen.
The dog's super excited about the alpha strike.
Tell him.
Everyone, it's like aggressive northern meta. It's so excited. I mean, you've got again on the Chronomancer a great blast weapon. So again, you've got the ability to potentially. He can leech on himself. He can leech something to be starting on 4 APL. You're not really going to be doing anything with the kind of the free command, because no one's really going to be in position. Although a thing to do is to use your dash, if you're playing secure or anything else, use your dash to get an immortal onto a point. And then even if you're alpha striking with your first activation, you can then pop the guy for free to secure, cast a Chronometron on yourself, so you've got basically a 9 to 12-inch move with fly. So pretty much any mid-board vantage point is yours for fun, and then you're just going to blast anything that's kind of poorly deployed behind light cover, because obviously some people aren't expecting you to be able to get onto a midpoint vantage with the first move of the game. If you have managed to do it with just a move, you can then dash off, so you're not even getting shot back, or probably even got to. But if you can't, you've cast Chronometron, you've probably popped the equipment for the 4-up save, and like we said before, chances are you kind of surviving anyway, and most teams, look, you've probably got that one guy with the plasma hiding behind the heavy, but you've started everybody else on conceal. So yeah, okay, all right, he might be removed, he might not. The other thing is, by the time they pop the plasma out, if you've got other shooting options, you could have moved something else within 2 inches of him, and then you can spend a CP to redirect the shot against that thing. If that dies, fine, reanimate, and then your Cryptek still just stood there on full health, ready to cause chaos on turning point 2.
Just doesn't care. Yeah, it's pretty brilliant. Because also there's so many ways for you to try and force this through as well. So I was just thinking then, in ITD, you can use that command to, I guess, open hatchways for him
door,
as well.
Yeah.
So, and with the, I guess, death mark forward deploy, can you do that? Oh, no, yeah, I guess you can. You can use that in ITD as well, right? So that's another way to open a hatch on turning point 1.
Yeah.
So suddenly you can just open 2 hatches in your first activation and be blasting across the map, which is probably not something that people are seeing coming, which is pretty rough. So that sounds pretty damn brutal. So make sure you watch out for that. The Alpha Strike is something you definitely have to prepare for, and I guess we're sort of moving a little bit into the strategy for how you play against this team. But I think if you're not predicting that Alpha Strike coming and fully measuring out the huge distances that these guys can get to, then you gotta be ready for it. And I guess almost it comes to a point where you might just have to let them shoot one person and just accept that you're going to all space out more than 2 inches in light cover, and you are going to eat some form of shooting, but make it so it's someone weak, rather than having the classic, vet guard, super bubble, all behind heavy cover. They're going to see one of you. They're going to get an angle on one, and then if they hit your whole team, it's going to be game over. So if you've got lots of models, maybe your breaches, your vet guard, or your Inquisition, or something like that, you have 12 plus models. It might be worth eating some shooting rather than all of it by spreading out into light cover as well. I think that's some pretty smart moves there. One that you already touched on is that forced overwatch, which I think's again something to look for. Is you can't just leave models once they've activated. You have to be ready for them to do that again, and potentially even fight in combat. So you can't just charge into them and sort of move block them by just sitting in melee, because they will fight you with a command action. And generically, the way a lot of the Cryptek actions work is it's until they do their next activation. So you almost want to do this. Cryptek goes first, and then Cryptek goes very last on turning point 2. So your Cryptek action is continued.
Whoa, don't be jumping forward to strategy.
Sorry, yeah, we are getting ahead of ourselves. So other gotchas. So obviously we've touched on the Despotek monster of an 11-inch charge, the Alpha Strike, and the forced Overwatch. Is there anything else that you think's worth covering off?
So there's one that we were discussing before the tournament, and I never managed to get off. And I do feel that if you did, it'd potentially be a bit of a feel bad. But shout out to Reddit for this one. The bounce shot. Because you draw a line of sight from the kind of the target you're going through, but the shoot action is obviously from the original thing. So in theory, you could charge the Hierotek into somebody in the back line. The Hierotek in effect is safe from being shot, but then can be shot through. Which so I feel that'd be a real feel bad, but obviously, as I said before, the Hierotek tends to sit at the back, so I never got to pull that one off. But we were discussing beforehand that would be quite a nice little gotcha to get off.
So is there a potential there for your Hierotek to your Cryptek to be given +3 move to be doing 9? And then charging up to 11.
11, yeah.
Hiding in combat with fly, and then having someone shoot through him.
So the Hierotek doesn't have fly though, so that's the only thing. But still, an 11-inch charge is still going to give you an awful lot of mobility. And that's the thing. Look, the biggest weakness is the mobility. So it almost becomes the biggest gotcha because people are just not expecting. Because effectively you can chrono boost 2 models per turn from turning point 2. So obviously, like you said, it carries over. So whatever you do, don't waste the chrono on a model that's already activated. So you're going to start with one already boosted. He can do whatever movement he needs and use the 5 up field of pain if he needs to, and then spell it onto somebody else, and then they've also got this additional 3-inch move for that turn.
And that's such a good point. Is again the way the expiry works on those options means that you can be like maxing it out every single turn using multiple models to be able to get these benefits, and that's really going to hurt people when it comes to your ability to move around the map, because as you talked about that, and this is where I think it's going to be so hard for Hierotek players not to take the Chronomancer, because he is the main thing that you're deficient in, he is fixing, and with the six main threats on your team, making 2 of them actually faster than the average threat, or like the speed of a Space Marine, I guess, is pretty terrifying. So that's a pretty awesome ability that they have. Okay, what else have we missed? We talked about the Chrono Mine already. I think we talked about the Super Conceal, the Forward Deploy Death Mark, ITD, and the Alpha Strike. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on from a gotcha's point of view?
No, don't think so. Yeah, we've pretty much covered. And to be honest, if people want to add a load more into the comments, then that's fine by me.
yeah. So yeah, if you think we've missed something because we haven't talked about maybe something that the I don't know, the Psychomancer does that you think is really, really important and is going to catch your opponent unawares, then please throw it down below, because we'll love to hear it, and hopefully it will help everyone else out understand this team a bit better and really min-max them, because it's so cool to see this team doing so much better. So I guess the final point that we'll touch on before we close off is a strategy of how you play this team, and how best to play against this team, if that makes sense. So we've probably covered off a lot of these points already, but it's always good to go for a little bit of a summary and a re-attack. So any points that you want to throw in, Ben, on the strategies that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I've touched on it. The thing that I did really poorly the first few games, you just kind of get better at, is your deployment. So because of the limited movement, and also it then being tied into a strategic ploy and potentially being tied into, look, chances are most teams are going to out activate you apart from elites. So having 2-3 models on an engage, especially against, I don't know, a team like Gassakin or maybe even Herdkin, is probably not how you want to start turning point 1. But then if you're going to go conceal, you've got the movement issue. So absolutely take your time in deployment. Decide who your groupings are. So decide which objective is going to be almost the death mark plus maybe a bug, because it can get there. Which objective is going to be your I need to boost an immortal. Now, is my boosted immortal the APL boosted one to go and do it, or is it going to be a pre-game dash? So is that what I'm going to do? I'm going to do recon, because even with then 4 inches, so that objective is annoyingly 7 inches away. Yeah, but now even with my 4-inch movement, I can still get there and do loot or secure. If it's capture, doesn't really matter. I mean, I've got 7 inches even with limiting movement, and then it's your position of your reanimator and your accelerator, like I've touched on. Your reanimator, you want that in a position that it's covering as many things as possible. So you have got super conceal, so maybe your opponent wonders what the hell you're doing, that you've put a barricade in like no man's land between 2 objectives, but actually what you've then done is you've generated this 12-inch reanimation bubble. They're probably not going to be able to get to your reanimator. They can't take him out from advantage, but you can now get 2 points covered where you're going to get that reanimation from him. So that's something to think about on the deploy. And then also think about your Tac Ops. So depending on which ones you've gone, which side do I want? So obviously a lot of time you give defender away, and I think it's less important. So sometimes for me, look, if I can get a really well protected centre line and central control because of the way the scenery is laid out, I'm going to take defender, and I'm going to sit on that point and try and double up my score from there.
Those are really, really good points. And I think the Tac Op point I just want to sort of re-attack is I think it's something that people often overlook is looking at what your opponent team can take as well. Like, so when you're choosing sides, you have to think, if you're playing against a security team and you give them the ability to sit on the centre line or sit in central control with really good cover, or you have the ability to take that away from them, then why would you not do that? Just make their life difficult when it comes to Tac Op selection. And the same can be said for siege ground or wherever it's going to be. But look at it and go, what can I do here to maybe force them into a play style that's unfavourable for them? Is a really pro level move when it comes to this sort of thing. I guess as well, that there's an element of there's certain models in this team that have to do a lot of heavy lifting, and I'm cautious of telling you to throw too much down the drain when it comes to trying to kill a Cryptek. But potentially, if you can get through their armor save, they're invulnerable by using melee or something like that instead. If you can kill that Cryptek early on, it's going to really hurt them when it comes to their ability to actually do all these special abilities that they want to be able to do. And so the Alpha Strike is terrifying, but also it could be an opportunity. So if you can limit how much damage that Alpha Strike can actually do, so you're spaced out correctly or wherever it is going to be, so they can really realistically only hit one model, and they lose their Cryptek for that, with the reliability of the reanimation rolls, all that sort of stuff, then there's a chance there that it could go really wrong for them. So make them pay for the Alpha Strike, if that makes sense. So make it so that if they really want to do it, then it's going to hurt them to do that.
I completely agree. I mean, I didn't do the Alpha Strike at all in any 4 games for that exact reason. I just didn't want to risk the Cryptek. The mine being down and the board control far outweighed potentially getting 2 kills. So I mean, the Cryptek can be sat on a vantage point in cover, just laughing at everybody at turning point 1. And then you've then got the fly. So turning point 2, you almost can do a turning point 2 Alpha Strike. So you activate him, he drops the mine again, blasts someone, and then flies away to safety or obscurity. But yeah, keeping him alive. If you can take him off the board in turning point 1 or 2, and he doesn't reanimate, then yeah, you're actually probably going to stomp the Hierotek player.
Yeah, it's going to be a very difficult thing for them to come back from, because also now one of the changes is that once he's dead, the buffs go away, right? So they can immediately lose all those special abilities that they've been trying to keep for so long. I guess if you are an aggressive player, maybe you hail from the northwest of the UK, and you have that in your blood, then that Apprentex is going to be your best friend to at least offset a little bit of that, to make sure you have the ability to use some of the Cryptek abilities when your Cryptek might be out of the fight on turn 1 after his Alpha Strike. But that's awesome. Is there any other things from strategy that you think is worth touching on?
Yeah, I guess you've already touched it. So they're not strong in melee, and if they get tied up in it, then your game plan's kind of out of the window. So again, you're looking at strategic placements of barricades. You're looking at being just under the 1 inch from behind it to stop you being charged. So everything about this team ties into security. So you're just constantly looking at board control. But yeah, look, if you're going into them, tying them up in melee really messes them up. And to be honest, yeah, we're talking about them being durable, but bringing AP weapons, look, it doesn't matter about your wounds if you're being blasted in the face with a plasma. And although the the starting wounds, they're like, I don't know, 75, 77-ish, and yeah, okay, you're going to heal 2, and you've got the potential of reanimating up to 2 models with 8 wounds again, but also you've got the potential that you've just fluffed 2 reanimation rolls, and you've suddenly lost board state on half the board at the start of turning point 2.
Yeah, and they, because that's the thing, is like, again, we touched on the movement penalty, right? It's they can't get it back. So once you've done that damage to them, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to get a model back over to the other side of the board. So you have to be, I guess, quite cautious with where you're risking and what you have to do, because you touched on it there. Like, you're a 10 wound model, which on paper does seem like a lot, and generically it is. But against damage 5 weapons, like your plasma guns and that sort of stuff, it's going to eat through you just as easily as anything else. So you really have to be careful with those. But I guess the main things I'm hearing is the Hierotek team really wants to control your movement. They want to lock down a certain area of the board with their mine, and force you to play their game like slowly, and it will stop you from charging. It will stop you from being able to get the range that you want. So, again, thinking about that from a board perspective, think about where you can move out width of that. So set up your models to get as many angles as possible and as many routes as possible towards those areas, and maybe deploy slightly further forward than you want to be able to make up for that. Because if they have to choose where to put that mine. They have to choose which side they're gonna movement buff someone, and if you can make it unfavorable for them, so suddenly they go, well, now actually I have to go, over this side or that side, or I have to choose between, do I shut down this plasma gun threat on the left or the melta gun threat on the right? Well, now suddenly you've achieved what you wanted to, right? And you'll be able to get your threat models into the mix.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, like the ideal board state for me as a Hierotek player is that the other person's panicked and just lumped everyone behind the one heavy in their deployment.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to put the nano mine on the other side of that heavy, and good luck even getting out of your deployment.
So a 4-inch movement penalty just to begin the game, which against a lot of teams is going to be absolutely disgusting. So yeah. I guess, I kind of touched on this already, but there is an opportunity for people to see this in action and in a live bat rep on GFN Gaming, and it is absolutely incredible quality. So if you haven't seen it yet and you're thinking, you know what, this podcast is excited me a little bit and I'm interested about Hierotek now, well, head over to GFN Gaming. You'll see it on one of the videos there, Hierotek Circle versus Galapox Infected. You can see Ben playing him for real against Russ's Galapox and being real mean about it as well. But it's a fantastic bat rep, and I recommend all of GFN's videos. He does some really, really high quality stuff. I don't know how he puts them out so quickly, to be honest. So yeah, head on over there and you can see all of this in live Technicolor, which is far better than what we're doing here talking about it, probably. Is there anything else that you had on strategy, Ben, that you wanted to throw in?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it.
Ideal. Connor, anything else that you think, you've been listening to this, that you think, hey, we've missed this?
Just want to say a big thanks to Ben for finally coming on the show, and in true Necron fashion, I'm sure you'll be back.
Hey, look, we had to wait. We had to wait an hour for that, but well done.
Connor's bringing the high value jokes as always. No, but on a serious note, thank you so much for coming on. It is a pleasure. And we have been trying to get you on at an appropriate point, and various conflicting schedules hasn't allowed it. But it's awesome that we have finally managed to get you on. We need to get Dan on as well at some point, and that'll be the next thing to do, because for anyone who doesn't know, both Ben and Dan are part of the Turning Point Tactics team, representing us at that tournament. So whenever these guys go and crush it and win, whenever Ben goes and crushes it and wins, we get all the points for that, which is really, really helpful and helps show what we can do, which is awesome. So massive congratulations again on the win. You absolutely nailed it, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of that in future. Okay, I think that's going to bring us to the end of the episode. So hopefully you found something new or useful whilst listening. And if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button with a little bell and you get a notification as soon as the next one drops. That really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. If If you can't wait and you do want early access, we do have a Patreon where you get exclusive access to all of our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback, so drop us a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Ryan. This has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.